Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Near Memo with me, Greg Sterling, and the always lovely and talented Mike Blumenthal. And today, our special guest is Anna Martinez, CTO of Uberall. She's been a CTO for well over a decade and done a lot of interesting things in her background. Today, she's responsible for the AI implementation, AI products, sort of broadly defined at Uberall. And I used to work at Uberall for a period of time, right as she was sort of coming on. So there's a lot of stuff to talk about today about AI. We're going to be talking about it from a internal tooling standpoint, product standpoint, the client-facing dimension, and then sort of speculate a little bit about the relationship between AI discovery or search and Google and the way we see the market developing. So, Mike, do you want to say anything before we jump
No,
in?
just welcome to Anna. That's all.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you,
you for
guys.
being.
Great to be
Yeah,
here.
yes, for sure. This is interesting stuff. So the first question I want to ask you is just what are you doing with AI internally? I mean, I know you have a number of initiatives going on, some client facing, some internal. Give us the landscape if you could.
Yeah, sure. So I like to think of about AI in three axes in certain way, right? Because AI is influencing everything. I think that's why sometimes people feel so overwhelmed because you hear it everywhere. Uh, but I think about AI as how it's influencing how we do things at Uberall internally, how we develop products, how we serve our customers, right? So there is AI in terms of how we use it internally. Then there is AI from the point of view of like what are the products that we are producing and we're giving to customers that use AI, right? So customers can use AI within the functions that they do in our platform. And then the third axis is how AI is changing consumer behavior, right? And as a result, then what do we need to be aware of, and how maybe some of the strategies and tactics that we do change because of that. So when I think about it, it's like, well, which type of AI are you talking about, right?
Well, so let's talk about it first in terms of the internal usage. How is it being used internally at Uberall? Not
Yeah.
not the client,
So
not the client facing piece, and not
another client.
the broader market, but just internally.
Yeah. So internally, earlier this year, we made a commitment and we said we need to become an AI native. We need to transform into an AI native organization. And since then, we've been through that journey, and you see it across the entire, across all the teams. I can talk more specifically about R&D, which is engineering, product, and design, which is what I manage. But and the idea of when we say what does AI native mean is like, well, it's really trying to rethink everything that you do and all the processes that you do, can you do them better with AI? And the answer might not always be yes, right? In some places, maybe it's better to stay doing what you're doing. But at least you're reframing everything from that perspective, and maybe you are rebuilding and redefining your workflows. And I think what is interesting is what AI does is it blurs the lines between the roles, right? I always say, or somebody at some point said, it's like if you want to understand the architecture of a product, look at how the organization is organized, right? And that's what the architecture is going to be. And I think what AI does is kind of blurs when you're thinking about being AI native, you blur the lines of what each role can do, and you get to try to solve the real problems and the core problems in a much more cross-functional way. I'll give you an example of that. So, for example, in our product team is so one thing that I told everybody is like, I'm not going to say this very often, but you have no budget. Go and start spending, right? Go and start trying things and experimenting. And as a result, we have engineering team working with Cursor and Copilot and Juni and doing code reviews with AI, and the QA team is going crazy as well in terms of building agents that also create agents that then create tests. So engineering is really adopting AI at a really fast pace, but product as well. And we adopted certain tools for vibe coding prototypes, and it's amazing. I don't know if you ever try some of those tools, but it's amazing how fast you can get to something really tangible that you can put in front of customers right away, that you can get feedback right away. So the line between who is a product manager, who's a designer, who's a coder are starting to blur, right? And it's not that you're going to create production scalable type of code, but you get to produce things that are good enough to get real insights, right? That can make you it helps you make decisions faster, right? So at the end, you're trying to be this AI native organization to try to do things faster, right, and be more efficient on them.
My
And
sense
that
of
can answer your
Uberall,
question.
can I just ask this question? My sense of Uberall as a German company is that they that 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 they may that the probabilistic nature of AI may conflict with the sort of identity of the company internally, if you understand what I'm saying.
I think the company
So are you
it's not,
articulating a
yeah.
German cultural stereotype there?
Well, yes, and I think Uberall is an example of they're a good company. They do a great job, but they have a lot of rules, is my sense of them, and guidelines. And I'm just curious how this sort of cross pollination and loosening of job definitions runs up against company culture, because I think it's probably a more extreme company culture than we're used to in the United States.
Well,
Yeah,
I don't know if
I think
that's
that's a good question, but yeah.
no, it's a very important question. I was going to ask a version of that question, not with the German cultural stereotype as the lead. But
well.
go ahead, go
Don't
ahead
get
and answer.
offended anyway.
I just
I'm
see
Go
not
them
ahead.
North
as I
American,
see
so it's
them on a
fine.
continuum as more sort of disciplined than, say, typical small SaaS startup
Not
Yeah,
or a Silicon Valley company. That's all.
Go ahead, answer the question. Then I'll
I
ask
can
my
answer
version
the
of it.
question. Yes. First of all, I think overall it's been for many years now. I've been in the company for 3.5 years, and it's been for many years a global company, right? So yes, headquarters are in Berlin. Yes, there's a lot of German employees, but the culture of overall is really a global culture, right? And when you are in any meeting, you see people from 3 continents sometimes, right? So it has, if anything, if it was ever like that, it's definitely not like that now, right? It has really transformed into a global organization. But like any company, right? Yes, there are rules and there are processes and like any company, and that's why I think there've been some studies lately that, well, all these AI transformation processes are not really giving you a lot of ROI yet, or companies are not seeing the results. I think it's just because change is hard, right? We like to stay with the status quo. We don't like change. So, but if you manage that change, like you manage any change in an organization, right? And and you have the commitment from the leadership, and you have commitment from and you give the experimentation space for your employees and empower them to do that. It's like any other change management, right? And I think the companies that have made the leap and have been able to transform to be an AI native companies, they are seeing some returns. And I see it. I mean, I can't measure it in absolutely everything that we do, but I see that we go faster. I see that we make decisions faster. And we do have it ingrained in our culture. We said one of our cultural principles is to be bold and drive change. Right. So we foster that in everybody in the organization. Different people, maybe because of different cultural backgrounds, they might take it more or less. But as an organization, right, that's what we push for. So no, I don't see a problem at overall. And I think especially in R&D, the more that you try, the more that we all are super excited because we see how it enhances us, right? How we do things better or faster with it. So
Corollary to that
that's
is
the answer.
with
Yeah.
code, whether or not security ever gets compromised due to AI code and how you might internally manage that.
Yeah, that's a good question. And that's something that we discussed when we first started adopting all these coding AI tools like Copilot and Cursor. I mean, you don't stop doing good engineering because you use AI, right? You still do your code reviews, right? You still have your checks and balances. You still have an architecture team, right? So none of that goes away. So we have the checks and balances, even if somebody who doesn't use AI introduces bad code, right? We sketch it. It's the same thing with AI. So you still do your engineering practices the way you do them. You don't stop doing them because of AI. I think the difference now is like you can do them. You can do a lot of that a lot faster, right? Because of AI. Yeah.
I want to go back to the organizational stuff because I think this is really the key, as you suggested. I mean, the MIT study that you alluded to, that everybody has talked about, found that 95% of enterprises that had adopted, I don't know how they're defining enterprise. It's a fairly loose definition, but enterprises that had adopted AI saw no ROI, and people went crazy over that. And I think the reason that that was true, as you said, is because they hadn't truly integrated AI into the organization, which implies a lot of organizational change or workflow change. And you talked about the blurring of the roles, which Mike followed up on. Just quickly, my experience of Uberall was not a stereotypical German cultural company. I mean, the Germans would make jokes about German, German temperament or German, but there were a lot of people from all over the place. And, the Germans themselves were quite different from one another. So I think that isn't the problem, but the problem becomes people getting afraid that their role is going to be changed or eliminated, or not understanding the lines of responsibility. Right. So I think one of the difficulties is people want clarity. Who's doing what should I be doing? What's my relationship to this other person? Did you do any training around that? How did you manage that? Because things can get quite political if people feel threatened internally.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think leadership is the key to this, but most
Hmm.
organizations don't have good leadership, in my experience. People say the rhetoric, but they can't execute, or they're not consistent, or they're not genuinely committed to the change, or whatever it is. So, how did you manage those things?
Yeah.
Training, giving employees confidence that their roles weren't being eliminated, the uncertainty, the blurring of the lines, as you said. I think that's all really difficult
And
stuff,
the
and I don't want
corollary
to.
question is, has it led to any staff level changes?
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I can definitely talk about that. So first, the fear. Yes, there's always fear of the unknown for everything, right? As I said, we're humans. It just naturally happens to us. But I think when when you start working with AI, right, especially in we're all technologies, you quickly realize that maybe one day robots will replace all of us, right? And that's a different discussion. It's not that your job is getting replaced, right? It's like I work in quite a few companies by now in my career, right? I mean, yet to find the team that tells me I have my full roadmap and I don't have to deprioritize anything in the roadmap, right? Or I could put the full backlog in the sprint and I don't have to make a tough decision between fixing bugs or creating new value. Every product manager, every engineering squad goes through those things literally every 2 weeks. So it's not that the amount of work is limited, right? There's so much that we can do, and there's so much more that we want to do. Right? And when we talk about all these things, it's like if I can give you guys an edge, right, wouldn't it be a beautiful world? The one where you don't have to decide between bugs and 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 new features that you want to build, or where you don't have to remove a project from your roadmap, right? And you can get to your entire vision of whatever product you want to build. So if we can have that edge, right? Why wouldn't we have it, right? And it's not about. And when you talk about it like that, it's like people are like, okay, it's not about replacing me. And then when you start using it, you're like, you quickly realize it's like I'm not going to get replaced, but some of the stuff that I don't like to do, maybe like the detailed documentation, right, or like the unit testing or whatever it is. There's so much that AI can enhance me, or even in the code reviews. It's not like we stop having humans doing code reviews. It's like doing code reviews with AI tools help you be more thoughtful about your code reviews, right? So you get to deeper conversations with them, right? So I really see them as an enhancer to our human capabilities. And I think the more that the team uses it, the more that those fears start coming down, right? And the way how we, even before AI, the way how we approach engineering and I think product development at Uber and how I approach it my entire life is like we're a team and we're looking for a result, right? It's like, sure, you have a role because you know a little bit more about product management, and you have a role because you know a little bit more about design and you know a little bit more about coding. We're working together towards that common goal, right? And if I do a little bit of yours and you do a little of mine, it's like we are a team, right? And we're together trying to achieve something. Even if you think it from an agile perspective, right? That like those teams that are just looking to be a high performance team that are trying to achieve a goal, they're not they're not going or like getting like flustered because of like a minutia of like, okay, you went into my role, I went into your role, right? That you're trying to get them to focus on like, okay, what's the end game, and that for that end game we'll win, right? So to me, that's the way to think about it. It's like I'm not trying to remove your role. Maybe your role will change, maybe your role will evolve. But that's been the case for technology forever. Right? It's like the role of
Hmm.
product management has evolved, the role of engineering has evolved. Like decade ago, we didn't have DevOps, right? Or we didn't have I don't know how long ago now, but or you didn't have cloud engineers, right? And so the roles evolve with technology. That makes sense. Will give you the tools to evolve with that, right? That one of we're talking about cultural principles. Our first cultural principle is grow together, right? So we give you the tools to grow together for you to learn and become better at your craft using whatever technology is available today. The technology available today is AI. How that transform you? Well, we'll see, right? We're all going through this journey together. But I think when you phrase it like that, people become a lot less political. It's less about my job and trying to defend my castle. We're really not about building castles at Uberall, and this even across departments. We're really about like, okay, what are the results? What are we trying to achieve? Let's work together on them. I don't know. I just think it's a philosophy that you use regardless of AI.
Well, it's a good philosophy, and if you can make that, if you can get people to internalize that, and everybody's rowing in the same direction, that's great.
Exactly.
Mike, did you want to explore more about the organization? I mean, we could talk entirely about the
No,
organizational stuff because
we
that's
should move
interesting.
on.
But yeah, I think it's very, very important stuff, and it's often what is neglected in the discussion of success or failure of products. But let's talk about products. So you have implemented AI in a number of client-facing ways, customer-facing, which are multi-location brands, brands that have lots of locations that you manage your reputation, location data for. Tell us more about that. Tell us how those have changed with AI, or if you have new things that AI does that didn't exist before.
Yeah, so definitely we've been transforming our platform to take advantage of AI. Ubi being our AI agent that really understands your business, understand location performance marketing, right? Understands what we call the discipline of location performance optimization, right? Or LPO. We last year we introduced a leading indicator how to measure that optimization and that performance optimization that we call LPS. And Nui understands all that, understands all the things that matter in that environment. And
Could you
then it
define
can,
LPS for our listeners?
sure, sorry. So LPS means location performance score. And what it is a leading indicator that what are all the things that I have to do? It's a score, right? Basically, but that helps you understand, okay, how am I performing or how am I doing in all my tasks related to visibility, related to reputation or reputation management, related to engagement, and it's a correlation to my performance, right? So the way how I think about it is in health, right? So you want to improve your health, right? Most people have an Apple Watch or some sort of like way of tracking, right? Like, okay, how am I performing? How is my health is doing better? Right? We all want to live longer and to be healthy. So you have those leading indicators, right? In terms of like how many calories I'm spending, how many hours I'm sleeping. I think of LPS kind of in a similar way. It's like it's your health indicator that correlates to your longevity, or in this case, how you optimize your performance, right?
So my
So
question about
yeah,
LPS is it's a backward looking global view that averages everybody's performance, and or is that correct? And then does it modify itself based on you do all these things? Your businesses, do they get updated with their own unique? I mean, one of the
yeah,
things Greg and I have
it's
seen a
both.
lot in our
It's both.
research
It's
is category
yeah.
specific differences in terms of what consumers find important, where they linger, what they click on, and thus generalized advice in local search is usually bullshit, right? So the question about LPS is how unique does it become over time?
Well, it's
So
not entire. I'm sorry, Hannah. It's not entirely
Well,
no,
it's an
bullshit
sure.
if you say,
average. It's not
yeah,
entirely,
yeah,
but
yeah. If you
but not every business is at the average. There's
right, no,
all
for
kinds
sure.
of.
But you can state general principles like reviews are really important, and it's important to manage them. And you can say optimizing your Google Business Profile is really important. But then when you get into the specifics of these individual industries, as Mike said, certain things take on greater importance than others. But anyway, you've probably forgotten the question.
No, the question was, so is there's an average that starts this based on every category, or is it based on your business's category? And then does your business take on its own values over time as you
Yes.
make these changes, they don't impact. And how do you avoid a conflict of interest? One of the things about search tools historically is, they don't always reflect reality. They are correlation tools, and they become metrics in their own right, but they don't have any real basis in
Hmm.
specifics. So how do you deal with
Yes.
all of that sort of dynamic?
Yeah, for sure. So it's both, right? So we understand what are the industry averages for your vertical, but we look at your specific business, right? And then how it compares to your industry average. But the recommendations are specific for your business, are specific are the things that you need to do based on what are your metrics today, what are the things that you need to improve. We prioritize them based on what we think is more important, based on the 12 plus years of experience that we have with all the people at Uberall have been doing it for quite some time. And then we have the reports inside the platform to see how that correlates over time, right? With whatever it is that you're trying to do. Right? I think the key here is like, okay, what is your end result? What is it you're trying to achieve? And based on what you're trying to achieve, working backwards, it's like, okay, what are the tactics and what are the different actions that based on the experience that collective experience that we have, we think are the ones that are most important to achieve those results, right? And so that's kind of what we call LPO, right, or the framework around all this is like focus on the outcome first, and then work backwards on what are the things that you need to do to achieve that outcome. Being LPS the way to track how well you're doing, and on top of that, then put AI, right? Put UV on top of that to help you do all this and to track it 24/7 and to tell you and recommend you what to do. And if you let it, do it for you. That makes sense?
So explain that a little bit more. So is Ubi a sort of a UI plus layer on top of your existing data? How does Ubi interact with the underlying data? And you say it can act as an agent.
Hmm.
Explain that a bit more.
Sure. So UV,
And while you're
I kind
explaining
of,
it,
yeah,
explain the
yeah,
underlying architecture you're using to get there as well. Like, are you using
sure.
ChatGPT that you've trained yourself or whatever?
Yeah, yeah. So UV is, I kind of see him as the concierge or
It's a him?
the well, I don't know. It's a him or it's a he. I don't know. I call it him, but maybe it's a she. I don't know.
Them. Yes, okay.
And then there you go.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And can I should I continue? Yeah.
You should.
Well,
You should.
yeah,
Ignore my
that's
interruptions. They're strictly random firings
yeah.
and they don't have
All
any
good.
meaning.
Oh, good. So Ubi is that I see a concierge, right? It's like it's what we call in the orchestrator agent. Behind, we will create what I mean, maybe it's a bus term, but like an agentic platform, right? So there is a swirl of agents and MCP servers and other and Indian agents and other things that are monitoring and working across the entire platform, right? And you can say like, okay, this is the platform overall as it was. We always had APIs and different ways of how it was architecture, MCP servers. Now we have MCP servers for pretty much everything that we do. And then we have ambient agents for the different things and different things we want to monitor. And then on the different aspects, right? Visibility, engagement, reputation. And then we have Ubi kind of being kind of the overseer of all that. So as a user, what you see at the end, you see Ubi, right? But behind there is truly a much more complex platform that we believe is like there is no reason why to expose to the end user. It's like we believe in just like keep it simple, right? It's like yeah, I can tell you I have 10 agents. I probably have more than 10 agents in the back end doing all this stuff, but it's really Ubi the one that eventually you want to interact with. And what Ubi, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So you've deployed agents that are experts in individual subcategories of local optimization or whatever we want to call it. So there's one for reputation and there's one for images and there's what is that fair? You've got a bunch of agents behind the scenes that are looking at isolated pieces of the puzzle.
And
Is that
I mean, Poppen, we have an architecture pretty flexible. If we need to create a new agent for something else, because okay, there's something else that we think we care about, we can just create it, right? So it has to be legal.
social media, Reddit, whatever, you could do it for anything conceivably.
Exactly. So, but that complexity we abstracted for the end user. We say, okay, for you, it's just Ubi is your agent, right? he will figure, or she, or they will figure it out. The rest, right? Don't worry about it. You can interact with it, right? And we can interact in a pretty. I mean, we try to create an experience that's close to like a Copilot experience or Cursor experience, right? Where you see what Ubi does. There is what we say. We believe that the human in the loop component is really important. So you build that trust with the AI. You can stop it at any moment. You can see it's thinking. You can see what it's doing or not doing, and you can tell. You can confirm or you can approve, right? Do something or not do something. So yeah. So we think it's a pretty comprehensive agentic platform in that regard.
So when the customer comes to their login, right?
Mhm.
Uh, are they seeing a ChatGPT like experience with a box, or are they seeing a dashboard that also has a box where you can query the box about things that you're seeing on the dashboard? How is that
Yeah.
presented?
So you see both. You do definitely have your homepage where you see your location performance score. You see the main task that we think that you should be aware of, and then you have UVI as a panel on the side that you can span contract. UVI itself tells you, hey, I've done these things, or these things are for you to confirm or for you to approve. So it can advise you on kind of like bring information back to you, or you can just prompt it with any question or anything. You can say, hey, Ubi, I don't know, it's like, yeah, change my business hours and the locations in Santa Monica to whatever, right? And then Ubi will actually do that ads for you, and it will show you how it's doing and what it's doing it, so you can kind of see. So it really moves and orchestrates with the platform.
One of the
Or
things
you can
we've
ask
seen
performance questions and stuff like that. Yeah.
One of the things we've seen with like just interacting with ChatGPT, it switches from 4 to 5, and all of a sudden something that worked really well no longer works, and it gives you false information. I mean, how do you make these sort of transitions when the underlying LLMs change, and does Ubi go off the rails periodically or occasionally?
Yeah.
What kind of things do you see it doing that might be untoward, oppositional to the desire of the business?
So that's the QA, quality control, anti-hallucination
Yeah.
question. Yeah.
Yeah. So to answer first, another question that you asked me is like, what model are we using? Are we using our own model? So we abstracted what models to use, so we can pretty much use any model. In general, majority of things we use OpenAI and the different models that they've been providing. But we can switch them pretty easily, and we can test them. And we oftenly do that, right? It's like we're testing, okay, how different versions, how different models are working based on accuracy and based on performance, right? And maybe some agents are better for certain, using one model for something, and other agents are better for another model. So we have the ability to like the switch in the backend for different things. And then the thing that we added on top is visibility of everything, right? So everything is straight. And then we have an observability framework. If you wanted to create an ad for a company here, but we use an observability tool to be able to do evals, right? Evaluations of how the different models are performing, how who is performing, and how who is doing things. And we can monitor that. As I said, we trace all that, and then we can jump and see, and we get alerted if something goes off the rails. Also, because of how the UX works, that you interact with Uber in a pretty fluid way. The user can stop it at any point, right? So far we have not seen it like go and do things that something that you really didn't want to do. Sometimes what we have seen, and this is more with new things that we're developing and we're releasing, and what we see more in the development environment, is it can hallucinate when you don't give it enough context on the tools that you're providing, right? So when people say like you need to try to give as much context as you can to these LLMs, it is true, we see it, right? If the quality of that context is not great, it can get confused in which tool to use for what, especially if you have multiple ways of doing something. But then what you need to do is really get deep into defining, okay, what is this for what particular case, right? And like get a lot more prescription, and so it understands what tool to use in what case, and then we see the hallucinations going away or getting much better.
Quick,
But overall,
qu-
yeah, I hope that answers your question.
no, I don't want to cut you off.
No, that was wrapping up. That's it. Yeah.
Okay, so this is a related question about getting confused. So sometimes when you throw too much similar data at an LLM, you train it on data that is slightly different but sort of similar, it can get confused. So you've got a lot of clients with a lot of locations. There's a lot of LPS data in there, scores of various sorts, and there's a lot of information. How do you keep it from confusing client A with client B? So the reviews or the scores over here might be declining and you might make a recommendation over here, but this client has great reviews. You understand the gist of my question. You have to keep the client data siloed and separate from one another.
Yeah, but
How
we
do you
do. I
do
mean,
that?
that's how it was.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
has been architecture even before we added AI on top
yeah,
of everything, right?
yeah.
Data
So
is
there's no
pretty
mixing.
siloed
There's
between
no
the.
mixing of the data at all. There's no environment in which it can get confused about who's the right client to
No,
make this
no,
recommendation for. Okay.
no. I mean, we have industry average that it can use, but it's in a completely different side. It's not like it grabs the data from different clients and averages.
Thank you for joining us for part 1 of this interview with Uberall's Anna Martinez. Join us next week for part 2, where we will discuss client adoption of AI tools, advising clients on AI's role in the customer journey, and preparing for the future of AI in business.